The well-established microbrand Zelos is one I've covered a few times on my channel. I have so much respect for what Elshan has achieved, and the courage to release truly out there designs is commendable. Not that he needs to worry about if they will sell these days, with fans that hang on every release. I've bought a few, borrowed some, and reviewed all of them, and I've always enjoyed the experience, but I've never truly and deeply desired a Zelos piece until today. I am absolutely head over heels in love with the Thresher, and if I had to give you a quick reason as to why, it's because it has all the usual fun Zelos tricks, but it's extremely subtle in this particular version. There are many firsts for me here. The Damascus Steel is one, the Worldtimer markings with cities on the bezel is another. We've got Lume cast indices made out of pure Lume pigments, there's a lumed forged carbon dial, and speaking of Damascus Steel, it's the crown and buckle too this time. But the best surprise of all, my god, this both looks and wears freaking amazing on wrist. It's a bit more restrained than most Zelos releases, and this Damascus Steel in combination with the black strap and details that only reveal themselves in the dark is so up my alley, and perhaps yours too. It feels almost Zen-like in its execution this time around, but crucially with a bit more fun thrown in. If you keep watching this review, the desire to own one will grow, and you may sit on the forums 4 minutes after the release on around the 12th of August and vent your disappointment. However, it's worth pointing out that there will be other dial options and even a mother of pearl version, so with some patience and flexibility, you might be able to secure your own. I hope you stick around to analyze the sum of the Thresher's parts. These days you get a very handy watch roll with your Zelos purchase that might be delivered in a cardboard box, but that's totally fine of course. You still get the by now iconic steel warranty card and the same 1-year warranty, but the brand famously helps with most issues beyond that year. The sizing is again perfect, and it wears much smaller than its 41mm diameter and a lug-to-lug of 47mm. It's 12.7mm thick including the crystal, and the lug width is 20mm. We also get a 200m water resistance, which is super handy, not that this is a dive watch by any stretch of the imagination, but handy all the same. Having a closer look at this dial is rewarding. You can sort of see that there is something unusual here, and the forged carbon dial with some lume mixed in is surprisingly subtle and just adds some extra texture. We have an applied Zelos logo under the 12 position in its usual steel color, and that's it in terms of print, which I love. But it's also a good move since there is enough going on here. As mentioned, we get solid blocks of Lumecast indices, and they easily last all night. This is one you'll never struggle to tell time on, no matter the time of day or night. The date position at 6 is the usual small Miyota complication that is a bit difficult to see, but hard to leave out really on a GMT piece. Speaking of GMT, we obviously see the extra hand here in the blue GMT hand, which is matched with the 1 to 24 hours that circles the minute track. These small dollops of color is all that's needed to make sure it's not too dour in here. High polished fence post hands and a needle seconds hand are all highly visible thanks to the lemon colored Lumecast piece built in, and visibility is no problem. I've already explained a couple times how this Miyota Traveler GMT works, so I'll direct you to that section of my Traska review and explanation if you want more details on that. But something new here is the list of cities around this excellent bezel, so let's talk about that. Firstly, it's bidirectional and fully lumed with sapphire all around, and obviously holding a box sapphire in place with the excellent AR coating. It was a tiny bit sticky at first, but it's now loosened up to be a pretty comfortable bezel to manipulate. The grip is great and the feel is solid, but the manipulation is still best described as a bit gritty. Perhaps down to the material used on this model. Excellent attention to detail is that it's a 48-click bezel to work with the Worldtimer markers and the 24 hours in a day. So how does this work then? It takes a little while to get used to, but if you're used to telling 24-hour time, you'll soon get the hang of it. If it's say 10 AM in Eastern Australia, I move the Bezel to set Sydney here at the 10 out of 24 mark, which we can find at the 5 indice. This will now tell me that it's 7 PM in New York City, since that's now sitting at the 1900 hours mark. The one downside to this is that you cannot compensate for daylight savings, so you might be an hour off. True in this case, since it would actually be 8 PM in New York City this time of year. Anyway, it looks cool, and you can set the GMT hand to accurately track any city you want in the world. And they all glow in the dark, which the 10-year-old inside me loves. Moving on to the material used here, the Damascus Steel. For many of us, the first thought that comes to mind are the swords from the Middle East, legendary for their strength. The modern Damascus is made from several types of steel and iron slices, welded together, and the term today is widely accepted to describe modern pattern-welded steel. Since each combination is unique, no watch would be identical. It does form these interesting patterns, and whilst it's nothing new as such, it's the first time I've seen both the oversized and grippy crown and the buckle in the same material. And they are also signed, which might be hard to see, but amazing effort all the same. This case shape with the bezel resting on top is incredibly comfortable on wrist. It just molds to it, and despite being 41mm diameter, I feel it wears much smaller, more like a 39 or 40. There is some magic with this fitted rubber strap too, with its quick release spring bars. Sure, it's black FKM, but it seems treated with something on top to make it a little rougher to feel and almost speckled grey at close-ups. Really attractive and fits the case incredibly well. And of course, the buckle from the same steel is a lovely touch. The strap is ventilated and signed both underneath and on the fixed keeper. Again, subtle and spot on. Having a closer look at the movement, there's one more fun surprise. There is mention of titanium here, which is just a screwing back, I believe, but what is interesting is this brilliant rotor with a remarkably well executed map of the world. It's always nice to see a movement and covered by another sapphire crystal no less, but for once you might spend more time checking out the rotor this time, and in black to suit the rest of the watch. So it's time for the Lume, and that is something Zelos always nails. The indices and hands are easily the strongest here. The Lume in the dial fades first and quickly. The cities glow all night but faint. The indices and hands are very strong throughout the night. I've been praising this throughout the review, and it's not something I normally do unless I genuinely love the product I'm lucky enough to handle. And this is a very good one. It's not just my favorite Zelos, it's one of my favorite watches of all time. I love the mix of materials, the excellent Lume, but the one thing that does it for me is mixing all this with the greys and blacks that I prefer myself. I am a bit boring with my watches and don't want to stick out too much. It's the Swede in me, I think. We like clean lines and restraints in combination with excellent materials. I guess the only problem here is the usual absolute feeding frenzy upon releases from Zelos. And I'd really hate this one to be bought by scalpers that try to flog it off at stupid pricing. So my best wishes to you, fellow watch lover, and fingers crossed those of you that secure this one will love it and keep it for a long time to come. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.